Welcome to Dollars and Cents with Freedman Financial, the home for financial advice in a language you can understand. Created by Marc Freedman of Freedman Financial, he and his team of certified financial planner professionals will discuss timely topics that help individuals and families make smart financial decisions. And now, get ready for this week's edition of Dollars and Cents with Freedman Financial.
Welcome back to another edition of Dollars and Cents with Freedman Financial. My name is Marc Freedman.
And I'm Marion Gilman.
And guess what? The election's over.
Yay!
No more text messages.
So happy about that.
Oh my goodness.
And the ads, it was just too much for me.
No. Some may be excited about the outcome. Some may be disappointed with the outcome. At the end of the day, we were going to have an outcome.
That's right.
There are winners. There are losers. But at the end of the day, I hope this country can come together, unite, and find the goodness in all that we do here in America, because there's a lot more things that we're good at than bad at.
Absolutely. And you know, we're a very resilient nation as well. So no matter what the outcome was, we will rise to the occasion, and whether you like it or not, we will rise to the occasion and prosper, because we always have.
Now, generally, people that watch this podcast are people who have invested. They're people that have positive cash flow. They think more towards the future because they're watching a financial show. And
right.
Yes, with the outcome of the way the election worked out, at least to start, and we are taping this on Wednesday, the day after the election. You may not see this till Friday, but right now the market has responded quite positively on the short-term basis with the outcome of the election. Who knows what the next weeks will hold?
That's right. You really don't know. And around any announcement such as this, any change such as this, there can be a lot of volatility. But I think what the market likes the most about Trump being elected is that there's some certainty. They understand who Trump is and what Trump might do because we've had him in office previously. Whereas with Kamala Harris, they didn't know. You know, the market participants did not know what she would do. Because one never knows from what people say to what they actually can get done could be a very different scenario. So, as we've always said, the stock market and the bond market like certainty. We don't always have certainty, but if it can be a little closer to certainty than uncertainty, it's positive news.
I guess from a good standpoint, depending upon which side of the aisle you're on or which side of the vote is, it was a pretty definitive decision by the American people.
Right.
There was a popular vote, and the popular vote leaned towards Trump pretty significantly, frankly. There was a pretty strong winning margin, especially across those swing states.
Right.
So there is a statement. The American public has spoken. Now, granted, there is a lot of rhetoric and a lot of thoughts from those that don't support Trump or supported the other candidate, thinking that the country is in trouble. I don't necessarily see that. I don't think you see that.
I don't.
But what I thought was rather remarkable was the outpouring of support that came to President Trump from leaders around the world, around the globe. Notice calls from Benjamin Netanyahu, from Prime Minister Modi in India, an email from President George Bush, who had not endorsed anybody. Even Mark Cuban, who was pretty strong in his support of Kamala Harris and the way he made some comments about some of the people who may be voting for Trump. He basically also backed off. After the competition is done, he congratulated the winner, and he's ready to move on, just as we should be as well.
And I think that's the most important factor. And you know, this is something that is said and done. We need to accept it and move on.
Absolutely.
Accept it gracefully, I should say, and move on.
And, you know, so that's really the point of today's call is there are certain... call. I call this a call. It's a podcast, video podcast, whatever you call these
We're
things.
We're still
these
used to doing it
on
as
the
a
radio,
podcast
right?
as opposed to,
yeah,
right, exactly.
But there are certain things that you can control and certain things that you can't control. And as you head into retirement, as you start planning for the bigger parts of your financial future, it's important to recognize what you can control and what you can't. Certainly, you can control yourself walking to the polls and placing a vote.
You can control your response to whatever that outcome is, and your response to whatever market conditions are as well. You can control yourself.
Right, but trying to control others and trying to be controlled by perception, what we hear, sound bites, whatever, that can be a little disconcerting and uncontrollable. So
Exactly.
recently I was in Fort Mills in South Carolina, at an LPL conference, and we were provided with this book called The Guide to Retirement. And the gentleman that presented this presented a tremendous number of ideas, concepts, graphics. In fact, I did a podcast a couple weeks ago on this very graphic, but I thought I'd bring it back for the two of us to talk about it as well. And it's what's called the retirement equation. And the retirement equation talks about what is it that you need to understand as you begin thinking about planning for your retirement. And those things are what you can control, what you can't control, and what is somewhat in your control. So, Marion, let's first start talking about the things that you can control. What are some of those two items that we talk about in this retirement equation that everyone that's watching the show, here's what you can control. Totally up to you.
So one of the things that you can control is your saving over the years, as during your working years. How much do you save? And you can also control your spending. So what's coming in and what's going out. That is 100% under your control, how much that is.
Look, you get to control what kind of house you buy, what kind of car you purchase,
Exactly.
what clothes you buy, where you vacation, what you give as gifts to your children. That is totally within your control. A lot of that has to do with how much you make, what your expenses are, but all of those things are within your control as well. And then, we talk, like you said, with spending or saving,
Yeah.
you can control how much money you want to put into your 401k, how much you want to put into your Roth, how much do you want to save for your child's future education. Those are items that you have control over.
And I know sometimes when you're starting out in life and you're young, you say, well, I can't afford to put anything in. But it is under your control. If there's a will, there's a way. And sometimes you have to start small, but you can control that. And your future self will thank you for it.
Yeah, and I think we all know, we look at the way our children spend money. Our children, in many cases, are making far more money than we ever made at the ages that they were at. Yet they spend uncontrollably, and we didn't necessarily do that when we were their age. They have access to credit cards. They pay service fees. They pay for a lot of things that you or I may never have paid for because we knew that we had to keep one foot in the present and one foot in the future.
Right.
And so a message to the younger generation is you can control what you save and what you spend. It's a matter of whether you want to do it instead of trying to keep up with the Joneses, with your friends, with your neighbors.
And again, that's a very important consideration. And it's a consideration you should have all along the way, not just when you turn 60 and you're saying, oh my goodness, I want to retire in a few years. Now what?
Right. And Marion, when it comes to investing, what else can you control?
Yeah, so in investing, you can control how you position your assets. In other words, your asset allocation, and also asset location. Asset location refers to how much you have in retirement accounts versus how much you have in non-retirement accounts. And that's a big difference. It's a big consideration, and it's a big difference when you reach the age where you are now spending that money, whether it's in non-retirement or retirement, because of taxes.
That's
right, Mark?
Yeah, when you take money out of a retirement account, you've never paid taxes on a lot of these accounts, unless it's in a Roth IRA perhaps. But if you take money from your IRA, from your 401k, you could be paying taxes on the full amount that you pull out, and you pay at ordinary income tax rates.
Right.
When you put money into a non-retirement account, you only pay tax on the realized gain. And now that we have some clarity on what the future looks like in this country for the next 4 years,
Right.
It doesn't look like there's going to be taxes on unrealized gains, and it doesn't look like tax rates are going up all that dramatically. So having a balance of how you choose to invest your money at the right time makes sense. But also the asset allocation too,
The asset allocation is extremely important. And, that was hit home this past year, I think. Yes, in 2002, the markets were terrible and people were seeing negative returns. However, and you know, people get nervous about that. They think, oh my God, my money's better off in a CD, better off in the bank, where it's guaranteed, which it is. No stock or bond investment is ever 100% guaranteed. So when we look at it, we say, okay, well, do we want to take the risk of the stock market or the bond market? And, you know, had you not taken the risk over the past year, you probably wouldn't have, or past 2 years, I should say, you wouldn't have kept up even with inflation. Inflation was at 9% 2 years ago. The most you were getting in a bank was 4% at that time. So you're not keeping up with inflation. Whereas if you're in stocks or bonds, they have typically, over time, outperformed any type of inflation or cash. Now, you control that decision. And you also control the decision in terms of asset allocation of whether to stay in the market or get out of the market. And that's another
That's part of your control.
That's right.
You control the risk you want to take.
That's right.
And trying to time the market is a risk that you're needing to accept, because you have to be right twice. You have to know when to get in and when to get out. So let's focus on the things that are out of your control, Marion. What are some of those things that are out of people's control?
There are so, you know, I think the ones that are out of your control completely are what the stock market does. What are the returns? You have no idea. You can't control it. You have no idea in advance, and you can't control it. There is
control.
Have you figured out a way to do that?
You know, look, if we did,
that
like they would say, there'd be a line out the door. Our
That's
crystal
right.
ball is broken. We're investing for the long term. We can't control the direction of the markets. The other thing we can't control is tax policy.
That's
now,
right.
We have to go by the guidelines of what the rules are today, what our leaders might want to change for us in the future. We can go by those, but we can bitch and complain about tax policy, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. And
That's
so
right.
we have to build strategies around what that tax policy looks like.
Yeah,
And-
which is why when we talk about saying, well, we have control over asset location, retirement versus non-retirement, that's all affected by taxes as well.
Absolutely. And then there are two areas that we have some control over. And Marion, what might those things be?
Well, one of them is your employment. How long are you going to work and how much money you're going to earn?
Right. I can't tell you how many people will say, I want to retire at 65 or 67. I say, okay, does that mean you're not working anymore? Well no. I just want to
I'm going to do something else.
I'm going to do something else. So when you begin to do some part-time work or contract work or whatever the work might be, you're not having to rely on the money that you've accumulated completely to support your lifestyle. So you get some control as to how long you want to work. However, one of the things you can't control is your health. And God forbid there's a health issue that slows you down from being able to work. Or perhaps you die because, frankly, do you know when you're dying?
Well, let's see.
I don't know.
Nobody
when.
does.
Nobody knows.
Right.
So we have some control over longevity, perhaps, maybe by the way we eat, how we exercise, how what the genetics are in our family. So there's a little bit of control there. So there's
not 100%.
Not 100%. So let's review again. When we look at the retirement equation, there are 6 parts to the retirement equation. 2 areas which you can control. And what are those, Marion?
And that is spending versus savings, and then asset location and asset allocation.
What are some of the things that are out of our control?
Totally out of our control are market returns and tax policy, tax and benefits policy.
And lastly, the areas where we have some control.
What we make, what type of job we anticipate taking, and how far up the ladder we go. So what our earnings are and the timing of how long we work. We have somewhat control over longevity, in that if you live a healthier lifestyle, hopefully you live a little
Perhaps,
longer.
but you could get
You
hit by
never
a bus
know.
too.
That's right.
Nobody knows.
Exactly.
That's what we call financial advice in a language you can understand. And if now's the time for you to get serious about your financial planning and investment management needs, we're here to help. Our phone number, 978-531-8108. That's 978-531-8108. Or visit us on the web if you want to learn more about how we work, the types of clients we serve, what our fees are, how we invest money for our clients, who we've served in the past. Go to our website, freedmanfinancial.com. That's Freedman.
2 E's and a D.
Financial.com. It's really that simple.
Yep.
And also, if you go to our website, freedmanfinancial.com, Go to the bottom of the page, put in your name, your email address, and you can get our free weekly newsletter that lands in your inbox every Friday at 10:30 in the morning. That's going to do it for us this week. Marion, thanks for joining me for another edition of Dollars and Cents.
Glad to have you back, Mark.
Yeah, it's nice to be back from vacation. And we'll see you again next week with more financial advice in a language you can understand. Have a great day.
Have a great week. Bye-bye.
During today's episode of Dollars and Cents with Freedman Financial, your host may have discussed specific financial planning and investment ideas that are for general information only and not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations. Please remember that investing involves risk and may include loss of principal. Always consult a certified financial planner professional, qualified attorney, or tax advisor prior to investing to determine what is appropriate for you. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA, SIPC.